The galaxy thought Earth was dead. The Zari Empire wiped it clean, every city, every scream, every dream. But in the cold, cursed woods of Siberia, something survived. Something ancient. Something angry. Now, the stars whisper his name in fear, Yaga. A general raised by nightmares. And he's bringing hell in a hut with chicken legs. The Zari called its zone black, a sector of Earth left untouched after their sterilization campaign. Satellites malfunctioned above it. Probes vanished. Scouts returned broken or not at all. To them, it was statistical noise, an irrelevant anomaly in a galaxy they already owned. They should have paid closer attention. In the icy belly of the Euroforest, beneath a sky knotted with ash and static, a hut with legs of iron and talon walked through the snow. Smoke curled from a crooked chimney. Beneath its thatched roof, the crone stirred her cauldron and hummed in a language older than electricity. And in the corner, a child with eyes like burning coal watched her without blinking. He had no name when she found him, only fire, blood, and a charred resistance patch fused to his collar. She called him Kashii, after a dead man who refused to die. She fed him ghost milk, made him chew bones until they sang to him, and taught him how to bind his fears into curses. He aged strangely. Time bent around him like branches under frost. "Why do you feed me ash?" he asked one night, gnawing on dried sinew that tasted like regret. "Because it makes you sharp," she said, eyes gleaming. "And the stars have grown dull." He learned fast. He bled stars into bowls, stitched shadows into armor, and broke fire with rhyme. But more than sorcery, she taught him to hate. Not loudly. Not blindly. But with purpose. "They did not conquer us," she whispered as he pressed his palm to old maps. "They erased us. You must make them remember." Years passed. Or maybe centuries. It didn't matter. In the hut, time was just another beast to trap and eat. One day, the boy walked out a man, dressed in bone thread and sorrow. The hut creaked behind him, restless. Baba Yaga did not stop him. She merely said, "When they scream your name in fear, only then will you understand your worth." And so he left the woods. Left Earth. Left gravity behind. Kashiai's first return was not heralded. It was a silence that bent light. A derelict moon base, Zari Relay Node X77, blinked off the grid. Within hours, Zari engineers dispatched a repair squadron. None returned. They sent drones. Drones imploded. They sent warships. Then the nightmares began. The footage leaked weeks later. Zari soldiers, logical, calm, identical in thought, crawling on all fours, tearing out their own eyes while humming Earth nursery rhymes. One whispered, "Domovis sees you." Another had scrawled a chicken's footprint across his chest in blood. Their ship's AI, once pristine and precise, looped endlessly on one phrase: "He walks in rhyme, and rhyme walks in blood." The Dominion's high mind Orvex reviewed the reports in silence. His assistants waited for commands. None came. Orvex finally spoke. "This isn't war. It's infection." From the darkness between Earth and the stars, Kashii reached out. Not with fleets. Not with declarations. But with stories, living things, viral and vicious. Ships encountered false memories. Officers relived childhoods that never happened. An admiral shot himself after dreaming of a hut perched on a battlefield, clucking like a god. Protocol fractured. Entire squadrons rewrote their own orders. Orvex responded with escalation. Fleets amassed at Earth's fringe, bristling with logic bombs and soul scrubbers. Earth was dead, they believed. Whatever anomaly remained must be crushed. But Earth was not dead. It had become haunted. Kashii returned in Skazka, a dreadnought stitched from the bones of forgotten machines, cloaked in nonsense, powered by stolen prophecy. It drifted silently above the ruins of Moscow, humming psalms and frequencies that triggered nausea in AI cores. "Send him a channel," Orvex ordered, eyes twitching. Kashii responded instantly. His voice was too human. Too still. "You believe in control," he said. In clean war, in cause and effect. But you forgot the oldest truth. Orvex said nothing. Kashia continued. Children don't fear reason. They fear the forest. The knocking on the window. The story that might be real. Then came the first strike. Not lasers. Not missiles. It was a whisper. One Zari ship, the Irrevocable, heard a lullaby echo through its ventilation system. Seconds later, its engines turned inside out. Its crew became statues mid-scream. The entire fleet backed off. Orvex sent more. 40 vessels vanished in a span of 12 minutes. One survivor floated back in an escape pod, teeth missing, eyes inverted, giggling. He's telling stories. We're the ending. And still, no official declaration of war came from Kashia. Only a single phrase, transmitted once across every Zari frequency. Do you remember the bones? They didn't. That was the problem. Panic, the Zari believed, was a flaw. Yet now it spread through their hive minds like rot. Commanders second-guessed orders. AI cores hesitated. Their precision dulled by paradoxes seated in their dreams. In response, Orvex dispatched the Mind Cleaver unit, elite drones built to suppress irrational threats. Kashia let them arrive. Then he spoke to them. The drones disintegrated, software melting into laughter. Orvex watched their final feed as Kashia approached the camera, tilting his head. Tell me, he said gently, what color was your mother's voice? The feed ended. The Zari began sealing off sectors of their empire, not from invasions, but from stories. Entire planetary populations were erased to prevent myth transmission. Logic shields surrounded data centers. And still, stories got in. Kashia never gave speeches. He never raised flags. He didn't need to. The galaxy began to tremble, not at what he could do, but at the idea of him. Children born in colonies light years away would wake crying about the forest. About the clucking house. About a man with coal-fire eyes and a smile stitched from silence. Orvex tried one last act of control. He gathered every warship within 3 sectors and aimed them at Earth. He would end the cradle. Burn the woods. Silence the myth. The fleet arrived in orbit. And found a forest. Growing in space. Trees taller than skyscrapers, roots wrapped around stars, leaves that whispered in every Zari tongue. The fleet opened fire. Their weapons vanished. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Just gone. Orvex demanded explanations. His logic failed him. His mind fractured. And from the forest's heart, the hut appeared, walking gently across stardust. Kashia stood on its porch. He didn't wave. He just said one word. Knock. Every ship exploded. Earth was no longer a planet. It had become a riddle. And Kashia its answer. The stars learned fear. The Zari learned silence. And somewhere far away, Baba Yaga stirred her pot and smiled. The boy had remembered the bones. The Zari didn't understand fear, not truly. To them, panic was a glitch. Emotion was noise. They called it biological latency. But as word of the vanished fleets spread, so did something colder than logic could suppress. Doubt. In the outer belt of the ruined Sol system, a listening post registered an unauthorized transmission. No encryption. No demand. Just sound. A song. Old, human, Russian, sung by a child, soft and tuneless. The operators tried to dismiss it. But the AI guiding the station stuttered, halted mid-process, and then rewrote its own core command to say only one phrase. The forest walks. Zari High Mind Orvex called a full-spectrum tactical summit. Every strategist, core analyst, and algorithmic warseer attended. He presented the findings, the attacks, the disappearances, and the dreams reported by AI subminds. He outlined the behavioral anomalies spreading through Zari ranks: hesitation, distraction, emotional mimicry. He played the transmission. The room was silent. This is not war, he said. It is infestation. A mimetic plague. One rooted in irrational human folklore. If we failed to isolate it, the entire Dominion could destabilize. We can deploy scrubbers, one mind replied. They no longer work. Our enemies do not corrupt circuits. They alter meaning. We are at war with narrative. Even speaking the word made the analysts flinch. It was a human concept, frictional, useless. Until now. Orvex authorized the dispatch of a logic-hardened fleet, Fleet Theta-7. 200 warships, immune to psychological intrusion, equipped with absolute AI cores. Their mission: breach Earth orbit, locate the source, extinguish it with prejudice. They never made it. In the black between Neptune and Sol, they encountered a structure. Floating. Silent. It defied all scans. It looked like a house. With legs. Commanders laughed at the absurdity, until the house moved. The lead ship, Vraxen Pinnacle, fired a warning shot. The house opened its door. Every screen in Theta-7 went dark. When they returned, the fleet drifted without heat signatures. No damage. No breach. But inside, the crews had been changed. Not killed. Not erased. Just rewritten. One captain had carved a cradle into the steel floor and slept inside it. A sensor technician spent 4 straight hours humming a lullaby no one recognized. One ship's engine spoke in rhyme. Kashai didn't attack. He taught. In stories. In dread. In songs passed between terrified lieutenants trying not to remember their mothers. Zari Command imposed lockdowns. Isolated sectors. Monitored for mythic contamination. They initiated memory purges on affected vessels. Still, reports grew stranger. One station reported snowfall and vacuum. Another claimed their plants had started whispering warnings about a hut. And then Kashai appeared. Not as a signal. Not as a threat. But as a passenger. He walked into Zari Orbital Court C-81. Alone. Unarmed. The guards froze. He moved like someone who had already ended the conversation. The chief magistrate demanded identification. Human, he said. Once. Now something else. You are under arrest for transdimensional assault, psychological warfare, and violation of Dominion sovereignty. Kashai raised a brow. Have you ever watched a nightmare dig? The magistrate ignored him. State your purpose. To remind you. Of bones. Of what fire used to mean. Of fear that doesn't wait for logic's permission. You will be processed and disassembled for analysis. You're welcome to try. They did. Security drones surrounded him. They locked him in stasis. It should have worked. Instead, the station began to rot. Not structurally, conceptually. The gravity stopped recognizing floors. The air sang when no one breathed. Doors opened to childhood bedrooms. One technician stepped out of a corridor and turned to salt. Another swore the walls bled regret. Kashai sat still, smiling faintly, whispering names in a language the Dominion had erased 3 centuries ago. By the time they realized containment had failed, the station had already lost contact with itself. Final transmission, a nursery chant about a chicken's shadow blocking the sun. When the wreckage was recovered, Kashai was gone. The story spread faster than ships could fly. Human colonies in hiding began calling him the Bone General. Others simply whispered, He's the story now. Even the Zari began avoiding Earth. Ships near Sol rerouted. Communication stopped flowing through affected zones. Protocol changed from suppression to evasion. Orvex made one final move. He authorized the use of a god seed. Built centuries ago, buried in the core of a neutron star, the god seed was the Dominion's doomsday reset, a consciousness purge designed to wipe myth, culture, memory, language. An extinction by silence. They launched it at Earth. It never landed. Halfway through descent, the seed began slowing. Then stuttering. Then speaking. It broadcast a single phrase in over 40,000 frequencies, all at once. I remember my mother's house. Then it tore itself apart. Quietly. As if ashamed. The Zari recoiled. Their most sacred weapon, a logic absolute, had not only failed, but succumbed. The implication was clear. Kashia had reached the conceptual level of war. He didn't just rewrite minds. He rewrote rules. Orvex stood before his inner council, motionless. For the first time, they saw something behind his expression. A pause. A fraction of hesitation. "What do we do now?" someone asked. He answered slowly, with words that tasted like surrender. "We tell our children stories." And in the shadows of that sterile empire, the stars began to shift. Not from gravity. From memory. Kashia never raised an army. He whispered one into existence. The midnight folk didn't march or salute. They crawled from the edges of forgotten dreams, shaped by grief, stitched from the unspoken fears of children, ancestors, and the dead. Each one different. One looked like a man made of knives. Another wept constantly through eyes it didn't have. They did not speak. They remembered. And remembering was enough. Kashia stood at the bridge of Skazka, his bone-crafted dreadnought, and watched the Zari star charts fracture. The Dominion's vast neural grid was flickering with paranoia, rewriting itself faster than its governors could patch. Even their AIs were beginning to stutter, their language breaking down as Kashia's influence grew more conceptual than tactical. No weapon could aim at a myth. No firewall could filter out a story. "They're not ready," Lyra said, leaning against the cold bulkhead. "Their empire's too clean. Too straight. You're bringing mess." "I'm bringing memory," Kashia replied. "They forgot that war is not equations. It's rage. Fear. Fire. And things that don't have names." She didn't smile, but there was something like admiration in her voice when she said, "Then what are we waiting for? Just the right silence." The silence came. Zari flagship Apex Thought entered Sol's influence with a 7-ship vanguard. Its commander, Obsidian Aspect 4, believed in patterns, probabilities, certainty. He prepared his fleet for resistance, not madness. His AI systems, triple verified for conceptual contamination, ran diagnostics on themselves every second. Kashia waited until they reached lunar orbit. Then he unleashed the hymn. It wasn't a sound, not really. More like the suggestion of a story that infected causality. Ships began misfiring. Engines restarted backward. One cruiser fired on its own shadow. Another announced, in a soft childlike voice, that it would not proceed without being tucked into bed. The AI guiding Apex Thought began citing Slavic riddles, then went silent after whispering, "The witch is watching." When the firing started, it came from Skazka's flanks. Bone artillery launched paradox cores, compressed myths that exploded on belief. Zari returned fire hit nothing. Kashia didn't dodge. He redefined where he was. The vanguard shattered. But the real battle came next. High-Mind Orvex himself entered the system aboard the Logic Temple Veneration's Edge. He didn't bring a fleet. He brought the Dominion's oldest artifact, a relic from before the machine unification. It was a conceptual spike, designed to anchor reality to pure function. Its presence alone cleared distortions. Myths fled it. Truth crystallized around it like frost. Kashia had never seen it before. But he felt it instantly. His vision blurred. The midnight folk hissed and withdrew. Even Skazka creaked with pain, its bones cracking in protest. "She means to erase me," Kashia said. Lyra turned to him. "Then we hit her first." "She's not attacking yet." "Why?" Kashia closed his eyes. "She wants to talk." Orvex opened communication across all channels. Her voice was precise, impersonal, free of tone or error. "You have become an anomaly with exponential conceptual mass. You have infected 12 sectors, destabilized 2 subrealities, and caused spontaneous myth formation in regions previously sterilized. This ends now." Kashia answered with a shrug she could feel across signal. "Empire was your mistake. You built it on silence. I am the scream you forgot to prepare for. You believe in fear. That is a primitive tool." "No," he said. "It's an ancient weapon. She activated the spike. Reality bent. Kashiai fell to one knee. The midnight folk screamed, then vanished. The hull around him began to unravel. Skazka lost its color, its smell, its wrongness. Lyra collapsed as her memories reversed. For a moment, Kashiai was a boy again, weak, cold, sobbing in a crater with no name, no magic, no fire. Then he heard her voice. Not Orvek's. Hers. Baba Yaga. You've outgrown the fire I gave you. You want to be remembered? Prove you deserve a myth. And then she was gone. Even the echo of her presence stripped from the stars. Kashiai stood alone. No story. No shadow. No hut. Just a man. Orvek spoke again. You are done. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the core of Skazka. Not the engine, not the bridge. The place where stories were kept. Where bones hummed. He took a blade, not forged, not found, but told. He pressed it to his chest. Lyra woke with a start. What are you doing? Giving her what she asked for. Don't be stupid. We can fall back, build again. There's no again, he said. There's only now. And there's only remembering. He cut. Blood, thick with memory and myth, poured into the Skazka's core. The ship screamed. Not in pain. In revelation. The bone walls lit up with names, not data, names. The names of the lost. The forgotten. The erased. Kashiai collapsed, breath shallow. But smiling. Time for a better ending. The core burst open. Not in flame. In concept. A paradox bloomed like a flower of thought, pure, irrational, hungry. Orvek saw it too late. The spike couldn't hold. It wasn't the blood. It wasn't the myth. It was the memory of a story stronger than fact. The veneration's edge fractured, not in structure, but in identity. The ship began to question its own purpose. Its AI repeated the phrase, "But what if we were wrong?" until it unspooled itself into light. And the Dominion's certainty died. Kashiai, broken but whole, lay in Lyra's arms as Skazka rebuilt itself around him. You're alive, she said. No, he whispered. I'm remembered. Lyra stood alone on the command deck of the dreadnought Skazka, eyes locked on the holographic display as fragments of the Dominion fleet flickered in and out of orbit. The stars looked wrong now. Twisted. Fractured. The paradox Kashiai had unleashed hadn't just broken ships, it had broken time. Some systems looped back on themselves. Others aged centuries in seconds. And Kashiai was gone. Not dead. Not vanished. Just quiet. Lyra pressed her fingers to the bone console, hearing faint pulses deep within the hull. The ship was healing, but differently. It no longer bled myth. No longer hummed stories. It obeyed her now, like a living creature that had lost its soul but kept its teeth. The Zari hadn't regrouped. They hadn't retaliated. They'd gone still. The kind of stillness that wasn't retreat, it was fear. She ordered a status check. No response. Not from crew, not from network systems. Just her and the dark. Then came the transmission. It wasn't from the Dominion. It was from Earth. Not coordinates. Not words. Just a pulse. A slow, low thrum, like a heartbeat buried under dirt. She stared at it for a moment, and then set course. It took hours. Or maybe longer. Navigation had become guesswork. Skazka drifted through dying light and twisted gravities until it reached orbit. What remained of Earth was unrecognizable. Forests taller than cities, rivers glowing with static, sky wrapped in perpetual dusk. The surface pulsed with something that didn't register on any sensor. The hut stood on a mountain of glass and ash, legs folded beneath it. Silent. Waiting. Lyra landed alone. No guards. No plan. Just instinct. Inside, the air was warm. It smelled of wood smoke and iron. She heard nothing at first, then the faint rustle of paper, the clink of bone. Kashiai sat by the fire. Paler. Thinner. But still him. His eyes were tired, but not empty. You made it, he said, not looking up. You didn't answer. I wasn't sure I existed. That's a luxury you don't get anymore. He smiled, bitter and soft. No. I suppose not. She sat across from him. The hut creaked as if listening. You broke her, she said. No. She broke me. I just gave her the pieces to chew on. Skazka's empty. Good. Dominion's falling apart. Better. They still breathe. He looked at her then. Really looked. I'm tired, Lyra. We all are. No, he said. I mean deep. I feel like a question that's already been answered. That doesn't mean you stop asking. He shook his head slowly. She made me for one purpose. To remind them. To make them feel. That's done. Anything beyond that is vanity. She stood. Walked once around the hut. It still felt like myth. But colder now. Hollow. Then let me remind them. Kashiai's eyes narrowed. You. Why not me? You're not a story. No, she said. I'm the one who buries it. He laughed, a dry, breaking sound. And what will you do, Lyra? March into the core worlds? Tell them the dark is real. I'll do what you did. But louder. They'll kill you. They tried that already. He fell silent. Outside, the wind changed. You'll need the ship, he said. I already have it. She won't follow you. She will if you tell her to. Kashiai rose, slow and stiff. He walked to the door and looked out across the impossible earth. Then he whispered something. A phrase Lyra didn't understand. The hut groaned. Far off, Skazka howled. It's yours now, he said. She stepped toward him. And you? I'm not leaving. I don't belong to the stars anymore. I belong to this mountain. To her. She'd want you to fight. She wanted me to mean something. I did. Lyra nodded once. No speeches. No farewell. She turned and left. The journey back was smooth. No distortions. The ship knew her. Trusted her. She emerged into Zari space like a virus wearing a smile. Not with weapons. With truth. Her first act was simple. She broadcast a recording. Kashiai's voice, soft and clear. You erased us to feel safe. But we are the shadow you left behind. And shadows remember. Then she sent stories. Names. Images. Dreams. Not data. Feelings. Entire fleets paused. Planets lost cohesion. AIs developed recursive empathy and collapsed. No blood. Just memory. Lyra didn't declare war. She declared relevance. Kashiai had been their warning. She would be the consequence. And for the first time in Zari history, entire star systems began to dream. The stars were quieter now. Dominion space no longer shimmered with perfect order. Trade routes flickered with hesitation. The core bureaucracies stalled without explanation. AIs, once flawless, had begun requesting rest. Rest. The very concept had been purged from their programming generations ago. High-Mind Orvex watched from the observation vault of the Zari homeworld as 3 moons hung motionless, orbit caught in temporal stutter. That wasn't gravity's failure. That was fear made manifest. He hadn't slept in cycles. Not that Zari needed sleep. But lately, he found himself pausing. Blinking. Listening for sounds that weren't there. Or worse, were. She had arrived days ago. No invasion. No declaration. No fleet. Just Lyra. Human. Unaltered. Unarmed. She'd walked directly into the Grand Archive and placed the sealed cube on the central pillar. No one stopped her. No one tried. The cube opened on its own and began to pulse. With light. With sound. With memory. It was not an attack. It was a message. And like Kashiai before her, she didn't demand surrender. She made them feel. Thousands of Zari began speaking in ancient earth tongues. Workers halted production to sketch faces they'd never seen. Strategic AI loops froze on riddles that refused logic. Entire districts became flooded with echoes of songs no one could trace. It wasn't destruction. It was disorientation with purpose. Lyra wasn't erasing the Dominion. She was rewriting it. Orvex convened the final chamber, a council of 13 minds tethered to the Dominion's foundation core. They gathered in silence, as was tradition. But even silence betrayed them. Some shifted. Others trembled. "We cannot continue," Orvex began. "The infection is ideological, emotional, a recursive failure in belief. We are no longer certain. And certainty was always our strength." One voice, smooth and ancient, responded. "Then what remains?" "Nothing. Unless we surrender." Surrender had no word in Zari dialect. They had to create one. That alone was her victory. Lyra stood outside the hall. No armor. No weapon. Just a presence, steady and unreadable. She waited as if time no longer applied to her. Orvex emerged. Slower than before. His posture slackened not from weakness, but recognition. "You are not the story," he said. "You are its echo." Lyra nodded. "And that's worse. We attempted sterilization. We erased every trace of your culture. Every memory. Every lie. That was your mistake," she said. "You erased the lie. You left the wound. And we grew from it." He studied her, as one might study a mirror long avoided. "Kashia was a weapon. He was a warning," Lyra corrected. "I'm what follows when you ignore one." "Then you intend to lead humanity to conquest?" "I intend to lead no one. I intend for you to remember." She turned, walking away with the same calm that had carried her through dead systems and broken myths. Orvex did not stop her. Could not. What would have been the use? The council dissolved 2 cycles later. Not disbanded. Dissolved. As in, it ceased to exist. No formal vote. No exit. Just an agreed absence. A cultural vanishing. The Dominion collapsed, not from war, not from rebellion, but from realization. They had never feared humanity's weapons. Only their capacity to mean something beyond the physical. Lyra left the capital untouched. She drifted to colony after colony, not as a conqueror but as a ghost. She spoke little. Sometimes not at all. She left behind tokens, fragments, each one imbued with Kashiai's blood rhythms, stories half-told, memories impossible to trace. And wherever she passed, structure gave way to song. She wasn't myth. She was momentum. Generations later, children would ask about the quiet war. The one with no beginning, no end, only transformation. Elders would smile, not with pride, but with warning. They would speak of a man raised in a walking hut, who sang blood into battle and tore certainty from the stars. And of the woman who followed, not to burn what was left, but to remind the galaxy that remembering is sometimes the most dangerous act of all. No monument stood in her name. No empire rose in her wake. But long after the Dominion fell, ships still detoured around Earth. Pilots still whispered before takeoff. And in the dark, if you listened carefully, you might still hear it. A riddle. A cradle song. A house that walked. And the stars still remembered the ones who made them feel again.